Okay, very good. Well, welcome everybody to the August Thursday After Hours. This is a great event and so excited to host so many of you for today's conversation. Before we get into the meat of the program, let me just make a few announcements that you might want to be aware of. First off, next week, our Aviation Transportation Committee is going to be having one of their regular meetings. It'll be virtual though. Next Tuesday, the 11th at 11 a.m. We have somebody from the State Department of Public Safety who's going to be on the call talking to us about the Real ID. Lots of questions about that, so we'd love to have you join us. The same way that you register for this event, you can register for that. It's free for you to log in. Also, we have one of the oldest, in my opinion, the best leadership development programs in the state. Those applications are currently available at our website, normanchamber.com. So if you haven't participated in that, we would love for you to apply. Lastly, I want to make sure that this date is on everybody's calendar, August the 25th. It's Election Day in Norman. There will be 4 important ballot questions that we will all be able to consider that day. Our Chamber of Commerce Board recently endorsed the Norman Forward Initiative, and I'm so excited about that issue that we're able to finish Norman Forward as it was envisioned back in 2015. You can find out more information about that at normanyes.com or follow Norman Forward on social media. Also, the deadline to request an absentee ballot is August the 18th. So if you need that, please make sure that you avail yourself of that. Now, we have a lot of people on this call, and so you are all muted, but that doesn't prohibit you from engaging in the conversation. So if you'd like to, if you have questions or things, certainly feel free to utilize the chat. Not sure if we'll have enough time within the next hour to get to all of your comments and questions. And so what I will do is provide those to our superintendent, and he has offered generously to help address those, and then we can distribute that out to everybody who registered at a later day and time. So, so to begin with, Mark Crittenbrink, thank you, your colleagues at Crittenbrink Architecture for sponsoring today's After Hours. I would love to be at your place in downtown Norman on Main Street, celebrating and networking today, but COVID, presents these opportunities, but nonetheless, your commitment shines through, and we appreciate you hosting us today virtually. And I'll turn it over to you, Mark.
All right, thank you, Scott. And thanks everybody for joining us. My name is Mark Crittenbrink, and with me today is one of my partners, Sean Lord. And on behalf of Crittenbrink Architecture and the Norman Chamber, welcome to Business After Hours. I think it was last year, I think was the first year we hosted Business After Hours. And it was, a safari theme. We had a foaming cocktail, little baby jungle animals, right? We got baby, like little monkeys.
Yeah, some monkeys running around here.
So that was awesome, super fun. And we were looking forward to building on that this year. But, any plans that we made for August, like any plans anybody has made for August, are out the window this year. And nowhere, I think, is that a bigger, more prevalent than in education. And I know, I think, in terms of, I know from students to parents to teachers to administration, everybody's been trying to figure out what fall of 2020 looks like. And that's a curious thing. I know Deborah and I were talking the other day, it's like, we're so lucky we don't have a child, are thankful, because what would we be doing? We do have a granddaughter who's 6, who's going to be starting kindergarten. And Sean, you have?
Yeah, a 5-year-old that'll be starting in kindergarten as well. Yeah.
Right, and are you Norman?
We're in more public schools, and so we haven't quite made our decisions on how we're going to go at it, but it's always, my career has been riddled with some projects with Norman Public Schools, and I've always kind of watched them back when Dr. Ciano was here as a superintendent. watched them and how they did things to kind of compare it to the more public school systems. Seems like Norman typically kind of leads in that area, and so anyway, it's good to have Nick available to answer some of these questions.
Yeah, it is. So our guest today, everybody knows, is Dr. Nick Millerino. Nick got his started teaching in the classroom and taught math and coached at Irving Middle School. He then was district director for secondary education. He then moved on, and this is a long enough title, I have to read it, Assistant Superintendent for Administrative Services and Chief Technology Officer. And at the same time, he's a nuclear physicist. Not so. Nick was appointed superintendent of Norman Public Schools in July of 2017, and we thought what better person to bring on to try to address what school is going to look like this fall. Nick, I know that we've all been thinking about school in August. I know you and your staff and the board have been working on this since March. So I think what I'd like to do, the format Scott kind of identified, I'd like to talk with you a little bit about what that process has been. We have some questions for you, and then at the end, we would open it up to anybody who has answers, and they can channel those through Scott. So starting out again, Nick, I know it's been a long, and every day it's like herding cats. Something's different, and the health department changes and such. What guidance are you using to make your back to school decisions?
No, absolutely. And first of all, I want to thank both you guys for giving me this opportunity and inviting me to share this information. This is really publicly my first opportunity to get to do this. So other than a one-way conversation at a board meeting and the communications I've been sending out, this is actually going to be really helpful for me. Obviously, I've communicated with a lot of people via email, individual phone calls, those kind of things. But Sean, both of you guys, I appreciate the invite and giving me this opportunity. And hopefully I can share some information. I also have to say I was at Irving and at Norman High School. And I have to say that because I see some of my former colleagues and mentors on this call. One, I have to call out Gail St. John. Gail doesn't need to share how loud my class was across the hallway. If you guys know Gail, she's about half my height. But boy, when she'd come over and just stare at me, those are visions that haven't gone away for me. So sorry, Gail. I'm sure you'll call me or text me later and thank me for that shout out. But with that said, no, really my team has been working since March when we all got the dreadful news that schools were shut down. And we went into that emergency learning phase, which was not anything that any of us are truly proud of, other than I'm proud of my teachers in trying without any training, without any preparation of doing their best at that point in time. And then we know families receive different levels of service at that point in time. With that being said, your question was, what guidance are we getting? What are we looking at to make decisions? And that's been the biggest challenge, just being completely transparent. We're getting all kinds of opinions, but guidance has been lacking. Just being completely honest. It would really be nice and this is, I know, a dream situation that maybe the federal government, the state government, different entities, whether it's the health profession, would actually come together and agree on something, because that's been the biggest challenge, is actually saying, okay, who are we going to follow? What information is true? What is accurate? Because as you all know, the decisions I have to make, my team has to make, my board, which I know some of them are on this as well, have to make truly affect people's lives, not just the education of the students, but people's lives. And it's a huge weight and burden that we all carry and take incredibly seriously. So to answer your question as succinctly as I can is we follow the State Department of Education. That is our focus, while watching all the other entities.
And I follow up on that. So the State Department of Education, there must be a lot of leeway because different school municipalities are handling it completely differently. So there's no, are they guidelines? There's no like, you got to do this, you got to do this?
Right. So they are guidelines. They are suggestions. I will say, I'm on the phone, emails, texting constantly with all the other superintendents. really we're all doing the same thing. It's just timing is different. I mean, honestly, we're all sharing and talking, and no one's got the solution, and no one has. We're just trying to do best by what we have. Everything has been suggestions.
Mhm. You go.
We recognize the unenviable task that's ahead of you, Nick. Certainly, our thoughts are with you for sure as you go through and make decisions. What exactly? Why did you ultimately decide to begin the year virtually?
Yeah, so that was twofold. One, we were looking. First of all, we don't. Throughout the summer and up to this point, the only people who have been on contract have been district level employees. Just last week, our principals came on to contract, and we've been working on what does school look like for this year. Everybody in the state and the nation is providing three options: either in person, a blended approach, or a full virtual. I haven't heard of any other options, right? And so we're working through this and really putting together plans. And when our principals showed up and we were going through those plans, we realized real quickly that to begin school year in a virtual or a blended model, we were not going to be ready. That, along with last Friday when the numbers came out that we had hit that orange level, which would have, as we've said, we're following that guidance, would have put us in that hybrid model, right? We weren't going to be prepared. And I want to paint a little bit of a picture for you of the why, because I've heard many people say, well, you should just do it. Why not? You've had all summer, you all these things. And it's just, if it was that simple, then we should be ready. But it's not that simple. All of our educators have been trained to do in-person instruction. That's what they went to school for. That's the methodology they learned how to use. It was in front of students. So it sounds easy to just say, well, just copy that and do it online. That is far from the truth. I mean, far from reality. I mean, if you look at the true online schools, that's why the highest one has a 40% graduation rate. So to do this right, there's a lot of training that has to take place. So when we told our principals this is what we wanted to do, their eyes were huge and they're thinking, oh my goodness, there is no way. Talking to teachers, there is no way. So what we are putting in place is basically a college intercession on how to implement online learning when our teachers come back on Monday. Our teachers will be reporting back on Monday. They will begin learning how to deliver content online so that when we come back, if we have to come back into a hybrid model, they are able to not only do what they have been trained to do, but will also have the ability to provide what I feel like is going to be a model online plan. So does that answer your question, Sean?
I believe so, yes.
What criteria will have to be met in your head before you can return to an in-person situation?
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic question. And this will actually be going out tomorrow in my newsletter that I'll be sending out to staff and faculty. So I guess if there's any news media on here, you can quote me on this because this is what's going to be going out tomorrow. So that's been the question of, okay, so we're out. I've told everybody I'm not going to pick an arbitrary date in the future at a 9 weeks or November or semester to say this is when we're going to look at it, because my intention is to be in school. And I will say, I've told, I have 3 kiddos, 2 left in Norman Public Schools, and I pre-enrolled them for in-person school. I want them in school as soon as possible. So with that being said, working with the groups we've been working with and still having the flexibility to make our own decisions, but following the model, I'm going to send out tomorrow saying our intention is when our numbers put us in yellow for 2 weeks, then my challenge is going to be getting back into school. I will be working obviously with our medical professionals, making sure we have everything in place. But when we can show 2 weeks back in yellow, then my intention is to get us back in school, because, you know, there are so many, this is what is my biggest struggle. There are so many kiddos out there that depend on us, not just families, kiddos. And that's been that's at my core. Every decision I have made for my entire career has been around kids, And there are a lot of kids that being at home is not the best place for them. And that's been really tough. I want those kids back. I want to see that they're doing fine. I want to make sure they're getting the services and the food or whatever it is they need, and that they're just safe. You look at the numbers across the state, across the nation of DHS reports, those kind of things, they're going down. But and you've heard me say this if you've been to the board meetings, the severity of the cases hitting the emergency rooms and other areas are going up. It's also showing a deficit in what we've said forever, is that DHS and those entities need more funding. They need more resources, because it shouldn't be on the school's back. But the fact of the matter is, we are the eyes and ears when it comes to kids. And that's what, that education is there, all those other pieces. But I am busting my tail to get these kids back as soon as we possibly can.
So if it goes yellow for 2 weeks, then would you think, hey, we're full on, or we're going to take this kind of an alternate system, or we're going to do an A/B? I mean, do you think you'd be falling back on, like you were saying, you are full on or virtual, or you're blended? What do you think coming back after 2 weeks of yellow looks like?
Well, I mean, our model is still our model. It's still out there. That's why, you know, even when people pre-enroll, they still have the 3 choices. So families would still have the choice if they wanted a hybrid, a full on virtual, or a full in person. If I had to say, like right this second, I would think we're going to come back in a hybrid model. First step, a little bit at a time for social distancing, for those pieces, and then hopefully our trend continues to go down and we're able to get everybody back together. But that, you know, that this really goes into, and I've had conversations with many of you individually, and I'll share this publicly. I believe that teachers are essential to you know, essential employees. I strongly believe that, but I just don't believe that you can put every essential employee in the same bucket. I don't think every job is comparable, and I think it's important to understand that. You know, and then that's been a shift also, guys, with my mindset. I said earlier, everything I've ever done in my career has been to err on the side of students, sometimes to the chagrin of the adults. And my thought has always been, you know, as professionals, sometimes you just got to deal with it. I'm sorry, it's right for kids. This is what we're going to do. And so that's been the biggest shift in this. And if you think about essential employees, and this is not to pit different essential employees against each other, but if we put them in different categories, we can understand there are some essential employees that everything they do is really structured. You know, where like at the doctor's offices, those things, you go out to the car, there's one person, you spend most of the time less than 15 minutes with a person. You know, if you work in a retail or you work in a grocery store, you have a lot of people coming in and out, but you're not bumping shoulders with people and you're not in close proximity for a long period of time. Well, if you take a look at just say a middle school teacher, and say an average on a day, an average class size is 30. I'm going high here, right? And let's say we're on an alternating schedule. So let's cut that in half, 15. So every hour on the hour, you're going to have, for 5 hours a day, 1 hour you get a planning and then you get a lunch. You're going to have 15 new people in front of you in an area, spread out but closed in, right? That you don't know where they've been ahead of time. And then in an hour, they're going to get up, cross paths with a bunch of different people, and come back in. Hopefully we've cleaned and we've got everything right, but that's going to happen 5 times a day. Then you don't know where they're going to go after school, what they're going to do, and a whole new group's coming back in. That's the anxiety you're hearing from educators. It's not that they don't believe or want to be with their students. there is true anxiety and fear because, believe it or not, if we tell a kid to wear a mask, they're not all going to wear masks. They take direction from the adults around them. And if you've been anywhere around, if you've gone to the store, some people are incredibly blatant that they're not going to wear a mask. Some people are wearing them. We're a subset of the community. We have the exact same situations in our schools. So when we say essential employees, absolutely. And I don't think there's a teacher that would disagree with that. But let's make sure we do it right. Let's make sure they're safe, because if I lose all my algebra teachers and they have to quarantine, I don't have any algebra teachers. And so that's some of the challenges. I know I went off on a tangent there. My staff is probably used to it, but I apologize.
That was good. It was good.
What that leads me into the next question, Nick. What exactly do you envision a virtual learning day? What does that look like?
Yeah, so fantastic question. Once again, our teachers are coming back next week, and I will start with, as enrollment happens, teachers will be in school sites, will be reaching out to students and parents directly in regards to their site, because every site will look slightly different. But I'm going to give you a high level. And then if I miss something, I'm going to see if Dr. Beck or someone or Ms. McKinney want to jump in and kind of give some more specifics of what an elementary class might look like or a high school class might look like. So I'm going to go real high level. And let's take high school. So 6 periods a day, all right? A kiddo is not going to be elementary or high school in front of a computer 6 hours a day. That's not practical, not reasonable, just could not happen. But we do expect there to be instruction. Our teachers will be in the buildings. They will be delivering instruction. So let's say Monday may be first hour, third hour, and fifth hour. Tuesday may be second hour, fourth hour, and sixth hour. So as a parent, you know what your kiddos are doing at different times during the day. As a student, you know what you're doing. And as a teacher, you know what you're doing. Then let's say, and then at the end of the day, there'll be an hour or so. If you want to make an appointment, you need to call a teacher, you need to have a one-on-one with them. So that would happen daily. And then on Wednesday would be a full day of office hours, virtual learning for teachers, where kiddos could make small group or one-off appointments. And then it would start over on Thursday, 1-3-5, 2-4-6. So something along those lines. At an elementary school, it's obviously not going to be sit and get in front of a computer all day either. It may start off with a little introduction from the teacher, make sure they get up and get going. Maybe there's a read along or some kind of get up and do jumping jack, do something. And then they'll be, hey, now I need you to go do these kind of things. And then we're going to come back at another point in time in that day. So it's going to be a little bit more back and forth, still Wednesdays being a virtual day, that kind of thing. So that's an ideal situation. There'll be a lot of different scenarios there that actually, if you don't mind, I would like to, I mean, if Scott or Holly would like to jump in and add a little more meat to that, I would love for them to. Either one of you? Hey, there you are.
Yeah, sure. Hi, guys. Man, it's good to see so many friendly faces. Yeah, I think Nick captured that. Our teachers are what we call our innovative learning coaches. Our professional development staff have really put together, we think, a solid, really solid 2 weeks of professional learning. In addition to all the different pieces of operating learning management system and virtual pedagogy and instruction, they're also working through how do we communicate with parents virtually? How do we stay connected with students? How do we go for deeper learning, thinking of equity concerns, all of those kind of pieces in the training that our teachers are going to be receiving. Nick alluded to that a little earlier. It really is kind of like a college intercession, and we're super excited. We've never had that kind of opportunity before for our teachers. But to that point, from a secondary perspective, it could look like a lot of things. I have a seventh grader to be this year. And as we look at the schedule, the way I would probably explain it around the dinner table would look something like this. She's very much going to have a schedule throughout the day. So that first hour, that third hour, that fifth hour will have designated times, right? So her ELA will have a designated block. Her math will have a designated block. her social studies will have a designated block. The reason that that's so critical is so those teachers aren't on top of one another when they want to have that time carved out to work with students. We're going to have, we would certainly have her logging into all of those. It will really help because structure and routine is critical. So even though we're going virtual, giving our families a structure and a routine that helps them kind of organize that day, as you guys know, for adults, for adolescents, that's just absolutely critical. There will have lots of time for one-on-one kind of meetings and that sort of thing. In the learning management system, you will have everything from videos, mini lectures, small group conversations, independent work. There's no question that you're going to have a time where a student's going to log into that first hour class and the teacher's going to welcome them, greet them, maybe introduce a new concept, maybe touch base on something the kids are working on and say, hey, it's 9:30. We're going to reconvene at about 9:50 and we're going to talk about this. I want you to go read this article. I'd like you to, annotate this. I'd like you to kind of write and respond to these prompts. We're going to reconvene and you jump into some smaller groups when we get back. Might look different in a math class. So lots of that kind of thing that will be happening. Also really important to us is we know that virtual is a dynamic situation. I don't know about you guys, but at our house, like life happens when you're at the house trying to do school. So we know we might have a kid who's working, helping to take care of a younger sibling. So what if I miss my first hour class? We know that some of that's going to happen. Our hope would be able to capture those experiences and have them archived and available for students who might miss that segment to get reconnected with it later at a time that works, and ample opportunities for kids to get with teachers as that extra assistance and help is required. Another piece, without getting into the weeds, differentiation in educationese means like, you have some students that are just flying and you have some students that might need some additional supports. So in a virtual world, that's hard in a regular world, but in a virtual world, how we're going to be able to differentiate for that kid who's just flying, that teacher working with them individually and trying to tailor that. Really excited about it. And before I turn it over to Holly, who is my elementary school counterpart, what I would say is, we really are excited. I think as we move through this and when we get into a non-COVID world at some wonderful point in time, I think this is going to pay huge dividends. We're going to have these learning management systems. Think of a kid missing school. Forget missing school. Just think of ever trying to, a student, that 9th grade student at Norman North, have that learning management system at their disposal in regular classroom world, and the ability to have everything really curated in one place, the ability to interact, have everything there, go back and visit maybe that lecture that they missed. So we think when we get through it, we're going to be all the better for it. I will tell you, as we've had the opportunity to sit through some of this planning, the thoughts, and our teachers now are starting to really get their hands on it, and they're going to make it their own, and it's going to really take off. I will tell you, we feel really confident that this is going to look so much different than what we experienced in the spring in terms of the depth and the quality and the structures. So I hope that gives some sense. I think the kids are going to be busy. I think they're going to be hooked up, and we're excited about that until we can get them back where we really want them, which is in person safely. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to
Scott, Nick, Holly, you guys.
Yeah.
I'm curious. In that, we're relying pretty heavily on good students, are made primarily by good parents, and certainly it will be critical in this setting to have parents that are engaged in a way that would follow through. I know that you have some ability to affect that from your end, but ultimately, there's a high level of discipline, I think, with the student that is going to be required, and a motivation. You spoke of a higher level motivated child that's breezing through everything. Well, clearly that child's going to be just fine in this setting. It is the ones that seemingly potentially at risk in some way that don't have a support system potentially at home. And Nick, I know that's what you're talking about, is these kiddos are they're yours. I mean, they're yours, and you feel responsible for that. And I mean, I've tried to wrap my head around it personally, and it's very difficult to find out just a good solution for it all. And so when I said earlier, it's an unenviable task. Bless your hearts. I mean, that's the way I feel about it.
Well, and I appreciate that. Yeah, and I'd like to respond to that. I've heard you tell me that before when we worked on construction. Bless your heart, Nick. You just don't know this. But seriously, this is where this is the huge challenge. You know, making this decision affects 60,000 people immediately on so many different levels. I think back to the teacher walkout, you know, and the community, and that's what I want to say. You know, a lot of this, we have a lot of families in Norman, 50% or a little less than 50% that aren't on free and reduced lunch, actually. And we have families that have that ability and the ability to make choices. But then we also have 52+% of our families who don't. What do we do? And that's where the community really comes in. And I'm going to hit this high level. More will come out tomorrow with my letter. Scott, obviously, if you want to jump in, you can as well. We just got off a call with United Way of Norman. You know, Darren Wilson and his crew and his team and his resources, just like with the teacher walkout, his first call when the message went out was to my team and me saying, hey, we're here, we're ready. We're going to stand up something just like then, and we're going to bring people together, and we're going to make this happen. So my plug, if you don't give to United Way, give to United Way. You know, they are standing up a website to look for resources and services around the community to help those who don't have the need. So Scott, do you want to say anything to that, or is that good enough for now?
I think that's good. I want to watch our time. If we could go to Holly, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Well, the elementary also will have a structure, and just like Dr. Beck said, structure in a child's world is really, really important. And sometimes they agree with us, sometimes they don't, but they really do function well. And so elementary will be set up in a structure where they learn best. They learn best with chunks of information. So they'll have times where they're with their teacher for a whole group time where they're learning whole group concepts in reading and math and science and social studies, but they're also going to have time to break out and do really, really target small group instruction in reading and math. They're also going to get small group instruction for students that need additional services, like those students that get pulled up for extra reading, or students that are our English language learners, or students that have that need some special education services. They're also going to have time to do a live Google Meet with their music teachers and their PE teachers, and that creative time and that movement time. You know, our younger students learn a lot through play and through interaction, and to be able to interact, even though it's virtual, but really to have some really rich conversations and discussions that are integrated with all of our subjects and really, really relevant to the world that they live in. So we're very excited to provide a structure for our elementary students. I know in the chat there was a few questions about what about the elementary students that don't necessarily have parents or caregivers, or maybe they're at daycares and don't get to log in. And teachers are going to be recording those sessions and, again, touching base frequently with families, whether they're logging in or not logging in. I'm also excited. There's been with United Way and a couple of other community agencies that have reached out to us, as well as some parent groups that are organizing some things and have asked if they can be trained on our learning management system, and for elementary, that's Seesaw, so they can help students log in and they can help students with that remote learning piece. Very excited to be partnering in different ways like that to be able to help our students across the community.
Obviously, Scott and Holly, for any of this to work, you need access. So is the district providing computers or internet access for students in need?
Yeah, so I'm going to jump in on that. Absolutely. You know, the last two bonds, so the last 10 years, we've been working really hard on providing access, and it's kind of, it's a good thing. We have computers and devices for all. Obviously, I think I hit mute there. We have devices for all of our students. Our 6 through 12 are one-to-one already. We already have some setups planned for those new sixth graders to get their MacBooks, but also we have a plan to distribute the iPads with keyboards and those different pieces to our elementary students who don't have technology at home. Obviously, if families have technology at home, we're asking them to utilize that, or if they have access to it. But yeah, we're providing those. We'll be delivering them either through a bus or a van, or we'll be taking them to them or setting up pickups, all different things. Also, regarding access Wi-Fi, we received a grant from the state and for hotspots and different things. So as families tell us, and through the online enrollment, which we've had a great response on our online enrollment, those that have identified one way or another that they don't have access at home, we're working with them to get internet access at home that will support the streaming and the online instruction.
So what if, just follow-up question, so what if I have 3 kids, one's in middle school, 2 are in elementary schools, will they be getting 3 devices, or is it 1 per household?
Well, no, so the secondary students all have their own device, and then we'll make sure that the elementary student has it, because we know they're going to be doing a lot of things simultaneously. Yep, so we should, yep.
Well, and those systems, I'll jump in, those systems were put in place by Nick, I mean, what, 3 bonds ago, when you started that initiative to go to 3 devices, I believe 3 devices to 1 child, when we were building in infrastructure on projects. So that's why they're largely ready for it. So
you remember that. That's great.
I do, yes, sir.
You mentioned meals. Will students still have access if they need them? Will they still have access to free meals, and how does that work?
Yeah, so great question. There is a need in our community. This summer and starting in March, actually, we were feeding at one point in time 70,000 meals a week to families, we averaged probably in the 50,000 meals a week. We do have some challenges with the federal government, continuing that programming and allowing us to continue it. From my seat, we are going to continue feeding kids and working with them. But I'm going to ask Justin to jump in and talk specifically about the child nutrition program and the plans briefly. I know we have a limited amount of time.
Yeah, so Dr. Nick mentioned, again, we are working with the State Department of Education. I know they're working with the federal government. Not that we won't feed, just making sure we collect the right information in order to be able to serve the way we need to. So we're working through those details. And then, as Dr. Nick mentioned earlier, already reached out to United Way and the partners that they're working with to let them know that we do have food services available leading into this time. Even our drivers, transportation drivers, bus drivers, that we may be able to utilize to deliver that to that learning center offsite or to the students at their homes. So in addition to food pantry and some other things that we have been doing actually in the spring, and then we want to continue through this time.
Awesome. You want to handle childcare?
Following up off of that, again, we're kind of talking about supplemental things associated with students in need, but childcare comes to mind as well. Is there any access to childcare for families that may need that?
So once again, that's where we're working with United Way. Truly appreciate Darren and that group setting up there. I know the YMCA and other entities across the community are already planning that. So the answer is yes. There are things out there. I know we're going to be sending out information. United Way is going to try to collect numbers of need so that we can work to address that.
What about, I know everybody, you think in August, you think back to school. Like I know with my children's experience, it was back to school sports or the musical, right? What safeguards are there in place, or how are extracurricular activities of that nature to be handled?
Yeah, so extracurriculars, many on this call, I look around and see the names on here, and I know you wouldn't be where you are today without the extracurricular activities, whether it is the arts or the athletics, and those are incredibly important. And right now we've been allowing those to happen all summer, and we've had very good success in keeping those small cohorts safe. We have had a few incidents, but not many. at all. And I think that's because of those safeguards we have in place. Plus, they're not crossing thousands of other individuals every single day in close proximity. Right now, my intent, as I've always said, is to have kids together. And that's one of those pieces that I feel like we'll be able to continue right now. Obviously, looking for direction. We talked about support and direction from other entities. Looking for a lot of direction from the OSSAA Activities Association that is the governing body for all activities, fine arts and athletics. Right now, it's kind of, do what you got to do at your school and good luck. But we hope to see some more specific guidelines coming out. But I've been in conversation, with the Jinx and the Owasos and all of those that are in our same positions. And we're all trying to continue access to those activities.
So I know fall sports would be like football and cross country. Are those taking place?
Football, cross country, softball, volleyball, quite a few. And right now they are taking place. Practices are taking place. We haven't had any competitions yet. Moving into competitions, you have two different scenarios there, Mark, in that you have outdoor competitions and you have indoor competitions. Two completely different environments. We're putting safeguards in place in both of those. Indoor, for example, though, we will be limiting spectators possibly to none or just family, and trying to live stream those. Outdoors, similar. But also, if we have visiting teams coming, or we happen to be traveling somewhere, the safeguards we would put in place. We're asking and expecting visiting teams to take place, meaning you're taking temperatures prior to getting on the bus to come here, and you're cleaning your equipment. We're cleaning, let's say softball, we're cleaning the dugouts, we're cleaning all of our equipment before they show up, limiting access to common equipment. Say the softball, it's in play. Every batter gets their own ball basically, and then if that ball gets hit, it gets thrown out, another one is in, that's cleaned. And so small things you may think, but things we're trying to do to mitigate.
A lot of moving parts, I would imagine.
Sure.
So
Yep.
To my daughter's credit, she had the only non-singing lead in a musical 2 years in a row. What about, sports and outside activities? I get it. I think that's easier to understand. What about in something like that where you're inside, you're rehearsing?
No, absolutely. Let's talk choir. Let's talk band. I just learned the other day that the trombone is the instrument that throws the most particles out. I guess you could, those of you who know wind instruments, what those particles are. But there are socks. There are things that you can put over those instruments to use. OU, we've learned that with their choir, they are having them wear masks or gaiters, and they're singing through those. So once again, that would be those would be some of the protocols that we would be expecting as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So fast forward to a reopening, what kind of safety measures will you have in place for a full-on reopening of in-person?
Yeah, so whether it's hybrid or full-on in-person, I'll kind of give you a high level of this. Justin, feel free if I miss something, jump in and let me know. But let's start with the AC units. You guys, the architects that are on here, you guys understand those. There's a lot of stuff being sold to us right now, but also doing what's right and practical. So, having the best filters. We're reached out to the hospital trying to understand what filters they're using. We just ordered I forgot how many, but tons of filters. The fresh air returns, putting those on a much more frequent cycle in each one of our classrooms. So that would be the HVAC piece. You have your rooms that are, separating desks as much as possible, having PPE cleaning materials in every classroom provided by us, providing masks for every student and every teacher. In my family, my daughters, the masks have become a fashion statement. So the mask I would give them is probably not the mask they would wear. But having masks, having all those different things in place, the electrostatic cleaning would be happening very frequently. Just all the safeguards we could put in place, staggering passing periods, keeping kiddos in small groups, actually focusing on seating charts in classrooms. So we know, my goal would not be to shut down an entire classroom if one person in there gets this. But that really depends on that classroom setup, and can that teacher and those students say, this is where I sat. Here is where the assigned seats of the others, who are those within those 6 feet? I throw out, some of the medical people are local ones who are helping us work through those pieces as well. So that's just to name a few. Obviously, you have the transportation piece, spreading out on buses, those kind of things. That's just a high level, some of the things. Justin, I miss anything? Yes, no?
No, I think you captured most everything that we have. We're still continuing to add to that, but that gives a good listing.
Well, that synopsis gives us an idea of the dynamic nature of what you guys are dealing with. It is a lot of things that I think a lot of people standing maybe on the outside look at and go, well, it's this simple, get this done. Well, it's really not that simple, and mitigation techniques and thoughts and things that you've clearly gone through are the way to do it. And that's, when you're considering the unknowns in these scenarios, I think ultimately the only way to move forward is responsibly. And so we certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think that's the key is the unknowns. Even the things that we do here in the office, we are 6 feet apart, but we have masks. We have, you do this, the things that and you think through the little bitty things, and it's an office of 10 people. So it doesn't get much easier than that. So I know you guys are dealing with a beast. I have a couple more questions, but I know there's been people calling in questions, and I'd like to give those questions an opportunity to be aired. I think they have. I see some pop across the screen. Scott, can you jump on that for us, please?
You bet. Okay, so let's go back up to the beginning. I think some of these may have already been answered a little bit. But the first question we had, Nick, was when we do return, will we go to an AB hybrid plan? Can we commit to it before then? I think you talked about the hybrid.
Yeah, so I think I can elaborate on that a little bit because I've received that as well. So we have still asked people to go through the pre-enrollment process and choose, one of the three, but tried to be clear that even if you choose that, you still have the ability to change your mind, as we do in school period. If it's not working for you, we're going to figure it out. But what choosing an option does for us is helps us assign staff and make sure we have the right number of staff in different areas. But let's say you chose in person and we're starting virtual. And when we decide that, okay, we're going back, and you as a family say, yeah, but we've changed our mind, we're not going back, you're going to be able to keep that same teacher, and you're going to be able to stay in that virtual situation, or vice versa.
Very good. Next question. Since many small children will be assisted by caregivers in group settings due to parents being essential, is there any consistency being considered for age groups?
Absolutely. Scott and Holly addressed some of that. We're trying to provide consistency across the district. As I said, on my phone, I'm going to know where my kiddos are. One, I'm going to have access as a parent to Canvas or Seesaw, okay, and be able to see all the lessons, but also what times they're supposed to be doing certain things. And that's not going to change. A teacher's not going to, at a high school, be able to say, well, I have second hour and I'm not supposed to meet with those teachers or those students till tomorrow, but you know what? I feel like doing it on Monday. Those aren't going to happen.
Gotcha. Okay, the next question was, what will elementary age kids who will be at daycare all day supposed to do? They will miss instruction.
Yeah, that's one of those tough ones. Holly hit on this. One, that the teachers will be reaching out individually and working through those on a one-on-one basis, what works best. But high level is that all those interactions, our intent is for them to be recorded where they can watch them at another point in time and interact. All of the lessons and activities will be entered into either Seesaw or Canvas, depending on the level.
Okay. Next question was, couldn't there be remote learning centers set up at special ed or set up for special ed students and high needs / low income or at-risk students, maybe
Yep.
at school sites with space or even at churches with whom
Sure.
NPS has contacts.
Yep. So first of all, other than some of our severe situations, we don't create courses just for special needs students. Our special needs students are in courses and we meet their needs. So that's one thing that I want to clarify. The other piece is our special services department and our special needs teachers, just like others, but they will be meeting with those families individually to work through their needs. Could there be, I would hate to say we're going to have special centers for students on special needs. I don't think that's the right thing to do, but we will be working with families on those needs and identifying what we need to do in those specialized scenarios.
And I think in response to that, there was maybe a comment, so more of an opinion on your part. Is it safe for kids to be at daycares, churches, school sites, if it isn't safe for them to be at school? So that was kind of a follow-up to that.
Yeah, so I'd have school right now, if that was the case in my mind. I do believe, though, with the right protocols in place, absolutely. I think people can be together. We've all worked together, but just like I have said, there has to be standardization. There has to be protocols in place for safety. We all know where our kids are in this versus adults, and those are the tough decisions that have to be made. But do I feel it's safe? I mean, that's a tough one to answer.
Okay. Next question was, I would like to hear more about the online systems that will be used specifically for elementary students. They say Expand Ed was on the list of teacher union demands, which they wanted removed. Are these improvements being made to this system, or is another system being considered for online only and blended NPS elementary students?
Yeah, so first of all, we're going to default with our teachers doing the curriculum and creating that and doing in-person and one-on-one opportunities virtually. Expand Ed, Edgenuity, those pieces. We also have Odysseyware. There's an Edmentum is another piece we have. All the same programs that entities like Epic use and all those others. I know there are other districts around us that have adopted all of those to go. That's what they are actually using full time. We have committed to using our teachers, and we feel like that's the best first option. But I will say those hundreds of students that went through summer school and or used one of our online platforms over the last year, there are many who are saying that's what we want, and those options will still be available. So we're not taking away any options. We just continue to add options.
Very good. And Holly chimed in also and provided a little clarification on that in the chat. So that's good.
Okay, great. I'm not reading the chat. So
No, you're good. And then lastly, as far as ones we've had so far, which this is good because we're about to our end of our conversation, but this was a follow-up on that first question about the hybrid model, the AB model. The question is can we commit to a particular model now? I think if I'm reading this right, can we commit from virtual? Is the next step going to be a AB hybrid model, or I don't know?
I would anticipate that, absolutely. I mean, unless we drop to a green, I would anticipate that. One, that's a phase in for our teachers. And two, it's a phase in for our families. It's not an all in and then all of a sudden we have to jump back out and go full virtual. I think it gives us the opportunity. There are a bunch of different scenarios there. In planning for that, actually, we were trying to maintain consistency for families as well. If we did an A-B model, it would be, more like A's are coming on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, we would have a virtual. Thursday and Friday would be B's. Something like that where there is consistency. It's not an every other day, everybody's switching around and trying to figure it out. Plus, we would take into consideration households that may not have the same last name alphabet-wise or so that we could create as much consistency as possible for families.
Okay. And then I think we'll do one more question, and I'd love to get Darren, he's on the call, and maybe get
great.
a comment from United Way real fast. But there was a question about that A-B schedule after opening would be regular school hours.
Something cut out. I didn't hear all of that.
Once you potentially go to the A-B schedule after opening, will it be regular school hours?
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. So Mark, if you don't mind, we were good enough and kind enough for Darren Wilson, President CEO of United Way of Norman, to be on the call. And as Nick mentioned, we were on a conversation with him and some other stakeholders in the community just a little bit ago. And so, Darren, you want to talk about United Way and how you guys are involved in this process?
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for allowing us just a minute or so, and I'll be brief, but definitely United Way helps the community in many ways. And certainly our goal in this is to provide resources to students and families that need help during this particular time due to, the decision to go virtual learning. And certainly we understand those difficult decisions that have been made. But so our job is to convene our community, to bring people together, to determine what resources that we have, and really to be a hub for communication so that everyone has one spot to go to see and to identify what resources are available for students and families during this time. So we just ended a call right before this where we had the faith-based community. We had the city of Norman on the call. We had some of our nonprofits on the call that are able to assist and provide resources through this period of time. So we're in the early phase of bringing these people together, but we'll be working from today over the weekend, hopefully first part of next week. We'll be able to put something out and together where families can start going to see what resources that they can rely upon the community to help them through this particular period in time.
That's great, Darren. Thank you. United Way is always there to step in when they need to be. Thank you for all that you do for the community.
Thank
You and your organization. So I wanted to point out that if anybody wrote in questions that we didn't get a chance to answer, those will be relayed to Nick. And so the follow-up will be made to answer those questions is what I'm trying to say. I have one last question. If people have questions regarding their family or their family situation, oh, my thing is this, I'm away during the day, or I have this need, or I have this need. Nick, who would they contact at the school?
No, fantastic. So first of all, they would contact, if school has started or teachers are back, my first answer is always reach out to your teacher, your counselor, or your principal. They're going to know the most about you and your situation. Obviously, we have a department here, Student Services, Scott and Holly, which you heard from. They are going to be aware of what's going on at every single site, and they'll most directly be able to help families as well. So that's where I would direct any family who has a question. If you have a special needs question, we have a special services department. Once again, you can reach out to them directly, or Scott and Holly can get them engaged in any conversation as well.
So after we're going to school, what's the start date?
For students, the 24th, Monday for teachers.
Okay, so after that, they want to go to their teachers or counselors and such, but prior to that, they'd be looking more at Scott and Holly.
Absolutely.
Or our special needs is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, it's 5 o'clock. I want to thank everybody who participated in today's event, especially thanks to Nick and Scott and all the staff at Norman Public Schools. And Darren, thanks for popping in. Nobody ran it by me, by the way, Darren. I didn't know. No, that's not true. I did. But honestly, you guys, I can't imagine being in the position of trying to create this beast that you've got to create, and so many people with so many, and when my kids were in school, my needs went as far as they did. These are my kids, these are their needs. I need those questions answered. I know you're getting that from thousands and thousands because everybody's so unsure, but I know from my end, I respect what you are doing. I respect that you have a policy out that people can plan around. I think knowing that we're going all virtual in advance allows some time as opposed to hanging fire. I think you're making decisions to keep the well-being of our students in high regard, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much for everything, for joining us. Scott, will let you sign out.
Okay. Well, Mark, Sean, thank you guys again for hosting today. It was great to have this conversation with our superintendent and his team. Nick, thank you. We understand these are extremely challenging times, but by the participation we had, a lot of people are interested in the new school year and what's going on. They deeply care, like you, about our kids and our teachers and staff. So thank you all so much. I am going to do my best to save these comments and we'll relay those to Nick. So hopefully technology doesn't fail me, but we've recorded this session also. And if need be, we can share this and post it later on because there was some great information.
Well, and that was actually one of the questions that came in, Scott. Will this be available to look at later on if somebody wants to share it with somebody, or, hey, listen to this and whatnot? When will that be available?
It will be, yes. We recorded this, so we'll be able to post it and share it with others who might have missed today's conversation. Awesome,
awesome. And I should point out that Nick is wearing a Norman North shirt, but that is a Norman High gaiter that he's got on. He's very much not playing favorites here. That's a good look on you, Nick. Very good. All right, thank you all so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.